Welcome back everybody to Zlatan's Fight Picks. Today we're going to do a quick recap of UFC 76 Strickland versus Magomedov. Quick recap because who wants to dwell on this last card? I do not. The fact is that it was probably one of the worst cards. Actually, it was the worst card that I ever had for total fight picks gone wrong. But I gotta admit, I mean, this gives me huge hope that if you do nail one of these really crazy cards, the amount of underdogs and the astronomical odds you would hit would be amazing. And of course, even if you bet these fights individually, you would have done fantastic if you just bet the underdogs, because I believe that half of the underdogs won on this card, and some of them were huge underdogs. So if you just bet on every single fight on the underdog, you would come out so far ahead. It was ridiculous. It was a crazy card. Lot of upsets, lot of surprise turnouts. Some people stepped up huge. Some people improved huge. Some people looked overrated. It was quite interesting. Nevertheless, we'll just go over. We'll go over with my most confident pick, Magomedov. As being consistent, my most confident pick seems to always lose. I don't know how. But what's funny about this is this. My most confident pick wasn't Magomedov. It was actually Kutateladze, which was minus 600. And because I felt like there was such a jinx on my most confident pick, I moved him to my second most confident pick. But he lost anyway. So he was minus 600 favorite. He got upset. And as I was saying, I actually had him here. I swapped him just for superstition. So in that case, I was going to lose no matter what. It was going to just happen. So just deal with it. Nevertheless, Magomedov, Magomedov's a solid guy with solid takedown defense, great striking. And, he just got beat fairly by, what was his name? Sorry, I got to go over the fights just because I was going over the new fights. Dawson, and I got to admit, Dawson looked phenomenal. Like, I've never seen Dawson look that good. I just never thought that he could be that good. But seeing how well Dawson looked in this fight, I think he's up a weight class. Yeah, he looked really good. And Magomedov, to me, was a top 10 guy for sure. Maybe not top 5, but definitely right around, that mark. And seeing how well Dawson did, like, I was really impressed with Dawson. He's going to come in as a huge favorite next time. Some people were saying, we're underrating him. And I underrated this guy, like, huge. But Magomedov has been so rock solid at takedown defenses. To see him get taken down and controlled like he was, that's a credit to how good Dawson is. So, nevertheless, Magomedov lost. It was boring as hell. It's not a fight I like to see, because just somebody taking somebody down and just controlling them and trying to submit them, but not getting the submission and just keeping them on the ground and, going from figure 4 lock to figure 4 lock. So the fighting was not a good fight to watch. It was kind of boring and stressful, and Magomedov unfortunately couldn't get up once he got taken down. So Dawson's control was great, but it was boring as heck. So nevertheless, it was a 30-27 round. It was it was deserved. So nevertheless, Kutateladze, he was my most confident pick. Now, it just goes to show, like, we're basing our analysis on past fights. And I think the main fight is when he fought, what was a Polish guy? He had one fantastic fight against a top 10 guy, and he looked so phenomenal, and he looked so solid, so strong. I think we overlooked a few fights that he wasn't looking as good. And Elves Brenner I mean, man, this guy's tough, and I think everyone just overlooked how much he will endure to get the victory. And yeah, and Kutateladze just, I don't know. I mean, I kept seeing him get hit and hurt by Elves Brenner. Either Elves Brenner is a lot more powerful than we think he is, or Kutateladze is not can't take a punch as well as we thought he could. So he kept getting hit, and then at the end of it, I just wore down and buckled down, and I don't want to say gave up. I just think he was really hurt. So what a great knockout and comeback victory for Elves Brenner, because Elves Brenner was actually losing that fight until that point. But he is tough. Yeah, I mean, to hit as the underdogs on this card would have been phenomenal, but there was a lot of surprises. Bonfim, it was the next one. I mean, seeing how I bet against Bonfim. I can't remember which fight. I think it was McKinney, and he came out and destroyed McKinney, and I was like, wow, this guy looks phenomenal. And then to see what happened to him against Benoit Saint Denis, it's like, okay, well, that's kind of that's the kind of the Bonfim I was expecting to come out against McKinney. So what a roller coaster ride. And not to take anything away, but Saint Denis looked phenomenal. Like, smart game plan. He's definitely in the right weight class. Super powerful kicks. Like, he looked great. You know, and normally I see him slow and sluggish. Yeah, he could take a lot of shots, a lot of punishment, but he looked very powerful in his striking. Even though he wasn't the faster striker, he was definitely the more powerful striker, and he took the initiative and he took the fight to Bonfim. And when he got behind him, and he's got such a strong squeeze, again, he's not the faster fighter, and I thought Bonfim would have an advantage on the feet, of course, with his speed. But when he got a hold of Bonfim, there was nowhere for Bonfim to go. And Benoit Saint Denis is obviously a very, very strong grappler, and he's got a really strong grip, because when he submitted Bonfim, he didn't even have it under the chin. He just had such a strong squeeze, Bonfim had to tap. So great fight, but nevertheless, you know, underdog, huge underdog, pretty big underdog won in this case. Brito, I had actually said like one of these big underdogs to win, and I said, well, pick Brito. I said pick a fight where Brito doesn't win, just because he was such a huge underdog. Unfortunately, I picked the wrong huge underdog. I should have picked Kutateladze, and Brito, of course, dominated that fight as expected. But you never know with these underdogs, and this is why I knew I had to pick one huge underdog. It always seems like one huge underdog seems to lose. So anyways, Brito won, KO victory, easy victory. Called out, what's his name? What's a Hawaiian guy? 50K Ige. So he called him out, gave him the finger. I think there must be some history there with maybe him challenging him and Ige kind of maybe not taking up the challenge. But he called him out in public and told him to go F himself. So Ige might take this fight. It'll be a barn burner. It'll be a good fight to watch. Nevertheless, that was actually, there you go. We got one right. There's not a lot of those. Stickland, KO. I mean, Strickland's a hard guy to fight. I think he seems to underestimate exactly how good this guy is. And Magomedov, we didn't know how good he was. And he's a great, dynamic, powerful striker. But, you know, can he last the consistent 5 rounds when he's continually being put under a lot of pressure, like somebody from Stickland? Strickland's going to fight for the belt one of these days, and I don't know if they want him to fight for the belt. I mean, he might have a style to beat Adesanya, because as much as Adesanya had knocked out Pereira, I don't think Adesanya is as powerful as Pereira in his striking, and he knocked out Stickland. I have a feeling Stickland has that weird guard, and a good enough weird guard to maybe not get knocked out by Adesanya. And I don't know. It's going to be an awkward fight for Adesanya, and I mean, Stickland could be the dog, you know, to pick on that fight. It'll be interesting. I don't know. I think the UFC wants him to win anyways, because Strickland says some crazy stuff, and I think he's hilarious. But some of the stuff he says at the UFC, I'm sure, is cringing. But he's got a huge fan base, and everyone likes him just talking his truth, I guess. But I will see how far that goes. Hopefully he fights for a belt. That'll be very interesting. Moving on. Fakhretdinov. Dominant performance. Had him at a pretty good favorite. Submission. Easy fight. Totally dominated Kevin Lee. Again, Fakhretdinov is a great fighter. Kevin Lee is definitely at the end of his career. He's fighting way too high of a weight class. He's too small. He's too short. He's a talented fighter. He's got to go down back to 155. This is not his weight class. I mean, he's not going to be a contender, but he could have some pretty good fights at 155, being in that mid-range opponent. So anyways, Fakhretdinov is definitely somebody to watch. He's dangerous. And it's gonna be nice to see him fight a much higher level of opponent and see what happens. It's gonna be exciting to pick those fights. Moving on, Ferreira. I had in this fight here, I had originally picked the new guy, Ruziboev, and just because of the huge reach advantage, I know he could take a shot. He's really strong. He's really powerful. But seeing how well Ferreira did against Rodriguez, I just couldn't pick against him. And there you go. So Ruziboev came back and had the perfect shot and knocked out Ferreira, who's never been knocked out before. Never lost before. So great fight. Great fight by Ruziboev. Again, that's what the fight I thought could play out. But I didn't think Ruziboev had the power to knock him out like he did. So, I mean, he didn't knock him out with one KO. He actually came on top and grounded, pounded him, and finished knocking him out. But he knocked him down. So, anyways, great fight. Ruziboev, played out the way I thought it was going to play out. And then I thought, nah, maybe the guy's not strong enough. But it was the perfect fight for him. It couldn't have ended any better for his debut. I'm sure Ferreira will be back. But nevertheless, moving on. The two underdogs I did pick lost close fights. So Griffin, lost 29-28 against Morales. Morales, definitely the stronger guy. Griffin did have some chances, won the first round. Almost, was dominated in the second round and was doing pretty good in the third round until the very end of the third round. And then he kind of lost it. Ivanov, he always fights close fights. Again, won the first round, lost the second round, and the third round was really close and just unfortunately got outpointed slightly in the third round. Those are the two fights I knew were going to be close that could have been swinging towards the dog side, which is the fights I picked, but those were the wrong dogs. So unfortunately, nevertheless, moving on. 51%, like a very low pick. I picked Gatto to win. I thought Gatto won that fight. I thought she had won a close fight against Lipski. Even though I was going back and forth who to pick. It was Lipski originally. Then I picked Gatto after I watched a lot of tape, and it was a split decision. It could have gone either way. I actually thought Gatto won that fight. So if you look at the striking, I think she took that fight, but it was ruled against her. So nevertheless, Gatto won. Gatto lost, sorry. Moving on, Rosa. Close fight against Santos. Rosa, it was a split decision. I thought Rosa won the fight in that split decision. Close fight again. So, but it actually went in our favor in that split decision. So there you go. So that was a good pick. Nevertheless, Petrovic, one of those things. I originally thought Carolina maybe. Then I watched Petrovic's games, or fights, and I thought, you know what, she might not have the experience, but I mean, she's got the advantage on the ground, and she did have the advantage on the ground. And I think she could have done a little more. She did have a hard time taking Carolina down. And in desperation, she would continually go for these leg locks. And that's what lost her the fight, is this continual desire to go. I think it's a plan B type of move where the takedown didn't happen. You ended up on the bottom, then you go for these leg locks. Well, actually, it's a plan C almost. And every time she went to get those leg locks, she got her face pounded in. And she lost the decision, 29-28. I mean, she took one round. I think that there was definitely some good takedown defense from Carolina. Carolina seemed like she was a little stronger, and some bad decision making. I think if you don't go for those leg locks and just get up and reset, she would have been better off, instead of the visual of her getting her face pounded in by Carolina. Nevertheless, that was against us. So yeah, I mean, underdog one, underdog one, underdog one, underdog one, underdog one, underdog one. I mean, wow. I mean, to have picked it would have been amazing. Nevertheless, it was a bad week anyways. So let's put this week behind us. Don't forget, bet online, deposit match, $1,000. Link is in the description. Buy me a coffee. Link is in the description. We are almost done. I'm done the picks for the UFC. Was it 286? Volkanovski versus Rodriguez. What is it? UFC 290. That is done, but I have to make some adjustments because of some fighters that have changed. So there's a few things that did change. Gonna complete that hopefully tonight, and then tomorrow I'll put out the new video for the UFC 290, which will be a great card. We'll see what's changed, but for the most part it's done. And I don't know, if anything, what this week has taught me is that pick a lot of underdogs. But I gotta admit, the matchmaking from the UFC has created great opportunities for betting, because it's so up in the air, and the extremes are there where you have such big underdogs winning pretty consistently. It seems like 4 to 6 underdogs win every week. Well, 6 here, but normally I think it's look like it's averaging about 4 underdogs, solid underdogs, win every week. So I mean, that's like a third, 33% of it. I mean, the moment you get to a third to half, you're just better off betting the underdogs. But good for the UFC. I mean, the matchmaking is really good. It's exciting as somebody who likes to look at fights and bet on fights, to see that, because you don't have these dominant favorites winning all the time, and yeah, things are in chaos. But nevertheless, let's figure this out for this week. Thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget to hit the like. Don't forget to subscribe. You'll get notification. Doesn't cost you any money to hit the like button. Helps me in the algorithm. Doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. So hit the subscription button. That'll help me out as well. Thank you very much for joining me. We will see you in the next day or two for the fight picks for July 8th. Have a great week or day.